Hello everyone, it's me, Henry Boxjaw. Welcome to my channel, Troubleshooting with Henry. These interviews are great! Today's guest is John Koensgen. John is a Canadian-born actor, director, and fight choreographer who has been working in the arts for over 40 years, including theater, film, and TV. He worked extensively as an actor across the country and has been a member of the Stratford Shakespeare Festival Acting Company. Based in Ottawa, John has worked with the GCTC, the NAC, Third Wall Theatre, and the New Theatre of Ottawa, where he also served a term as artistic director. John has taught at the National Theatre School, Dawson College, Algonquin College, St. Lawrence College, and the University of Ottawa, and has given workshops at many high schools in the region. Hi, John, and welcome to Troubleshooting with Henry, the interviews. I've got 10 questions for you. Are you ready to get started?
I'm looking forward to it.
Let's start with the first question. When you were a kid, what did you want to do as a grown-up?
It took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do. I had no aspirations of being a firefighter or a policeman or an actor or anything really. I was just blithely going along. And then when I became a teenager, my middle teenage years, I discovered Jacques Cousteau, who wrote a couple of books about scuba diving and the invention of scuba diving. One was called The Living Sea, and the other one was called The Silent World. I read both, and I thought, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to be a marine biologist. Well, little did I know at the time that a marine biologist actually works in a lab for the most part, and that scuba diving is really not all that prevalent in that profession. They spend a lot of time in the labs. So really, I think I was in love with the idea of being Alice in Wonderland in the ocean, and not so much Albert Einstein.
So, what's your career now?
I've been acting now for 42 years, almost 43, I guess. I started in 1976 when I was working at the university radio station at Carleton, the CKCU, and trying to finish my degree. I had one class left to do, which I actually never finished, and spent a lot of time as the assistant engineer. I had studied in Rochester, New York for a couple of summers in studio recording, so I had a bit of background in the recording area. So they hired me as an assistant engineer, and I did a lot of soldering things. In the process of working at the radio station, I was an on-air personality for a bit, which didn't really interest me. But I did some radio plays, and one of the people who directed the radio plays had a theater company, and he asked me to do a play, and I said, well, I don't really know what I'm doing. And he said, doesn't matter. This is just a freebie for the summer. We got money. Shh, don't tell anybody. We got money to do this play, and we're using it for our season. So you won't get paid, but it'll be an experience. So we did this play called The Mumberley Inheritance, which is a Canadian farce, and I played a character named Jack, home from the Canadas, eh? And so it was not Shakespeare, but it was fun. And we did only 6 performances in parks. And at the end of the season, at the end of the summer, one of the fellows in that play had written a play. His name is James O'Regan, and he wrote a play called Eschaton. So he was going to do it with the university the university acting group called Sock and Buskin. And he asked me to audition, and I said, well, I don't really know what I'm doing, James. I have no idea. And he said, well, it doesn't matter. There's 35 people in the cast. At any point, they play the mayor as a machine. And I said, machine? And he said, so you don't really have to know how to do anything, really. Just I just followed direction. And I went, okay. So I auditioned, and he gave me one of the two parts that only play one person. So I had to run out to the library and find some books on acting. I found a book called Towards a Poor Theater by Jerzy Grotowski. And at one point he said, breath is the inspiration for the actor. And I thought, oh, maybe if I breathe like the character, I'll feel like the character. So I did that, and it worked. And I thought, I'm actually good at this. This doesn't feel like work, and yet I've worked at this really hard. And I don't, although I don't know what I'm doing, I love this. So I dropped everything and decided I was going to be an actor.
Is there any truth to the myth that you are a fight choreographer as well?
When I started acting, when I was at the Art Center, we had fight training because I was understudying Laertes in Hamlet. And of course, he's a big fight at the end. So I had to do that. And then just before I moved to Toronto, I did a play here at a theater company called Theater 2000, which was a very small theater. And they did a play called Dreaming and Dueling, which I was cast in. And it had lots and lots of sword fighting. These two guys who were in the fencing team had this fantasy world that they would go off into, and then the fencing would become stage combat like fencing, Errol Flynn type fencing. And so our choreographer was actually on the national team. It was very detailed and very exciting and lots of fun. I went to Toronto shortly after that because there was no work here. And I thought, well, I'll go to Mecca and get some work. In that period, I joined the fencing club at Ryerson and took up competitive fencing as a hobby. And at the same time, I applied for a Canada Council grant to go and study stage combat in the States for a summer. And I got the grant and went. And one of the fellows who taught there was a guy named Paddy Crane. And Patrick Crane was the master at Stratford, the fight master, but he also taught at the National Theatre School. And I got back to Toronto after doing this workshop. Paddy Crane calls me up. He goes, "Hello, John. Paddy here. How are you? Listen, would you be interested in doing my job at the National Theatre School teaching stage combat?" And I went, yeah, how much do they pay, Paddy? And he said, "Well, I have no idea. I'll call you back." So he called me back, and it was an enormous sum of money at the time. I ended up teaching there for 4 years, and it was great. And then from there, I ended up doing a lot of fight choreography in Quebec before actually working in English Canada. Although I worked with Paddy for 2 summers at the Stratford Festival as well.
That's so interesting that you got started doing fight choreography, John.
It was an accident, but a fortuitous accident, because, of course, making a living as an actor, it's nice to have something else you can do, directing, writing, fight choreography. In my case, it just keeps you employed and keeps you in the business and helps make a career of acting.
What's the worst job you ever had, and why was it so bad?
The worst job I ever had was working at Revenue Canada in the head office, the sort of processing section. And so imagine, if you will, a movie that takes place in a room where there are 400 people. Each has their own little desk, and everyone arrives for work with their little lunch bag, and we get paid peanuts. And we have to sit there all day. And our day begins with a bell. It goes bing, and you have to, you have to start work right away. So you're assessing returns. That's what we were doing. And there's hundreds of us on this floor, each with our little desk. And you have several garbage cans at your desk for paper, for garbage, things that are security things, like, privacy information. And it was awful. And then you get a bell to have a break. And then you get a bell at the end of the break. And then you get a bell for lunch. And then you get a bell at the end of lunch. And it goes like this all day. It was awful. So that was the worst job I ever had, bar none.
I'm glad I don't have that job.
I'm glad you don't have that job.
Did you go to college or university? And if so, what did you study there?
I went to Carleton University and I studied biology for, well, it was supposed to be for 3 years, but it ended up being almost 6 years because I kept, after 3 years, I had that one class to do and I kept taking it and I kept dropping it because I just wasn't interested in it. But, the thing is, I learned a lot about learning. And I had an English class. I remember taking the Rime of the Ancient Mariner in the English class with a professor who was a poet named George Johnson, who's an eminent poet. And he was very interested in Old English and Norse poetry. And I, at the time, thought, why? What is this? And then when I became interested in acting, for some reason, one day I picked it up and I started reading it. And it was the most interesting thing I'd ever read. And it was because not only was it a compelling story, but it had linguistic volume, let me call it that, so that in its use of things like repetition and rhythm, it just came alive. And so I all of a sudden it was like acting opened up this balloon in my head, and I went, "Oh my goodness, why did I not see this before?" So then I became interested in poetry and Shakespeare and just literature in general. It was an opening door, walking into acting.
Oh, that's really cool.
It was exciting. Learning all of a sudden became a human exploration to me, rather than just some academic enterprise. It became the revelation of the human soul, which has always interested me since I became involved in theater, and is still my driving force in acting.
That's so cool. And actually, something really different just happened there that I don't think ever did happen before with this channel, which is you accidentally just answered question number 5.
Oh no! What's question number 5?
What got you interested in the job you have now? It's perfectly fine. I'm just saying it never happened before.
Oh, how interesting.
Okay. What do you find most challenging about your job?
Well, I said that learning something new was one of the reasons I keep interested in acting, but it's also the challenge of acting.
Can you give me an example of a time you had to troubleshoot an issue with your job or your personal life and the solution you came up with?
One time I was directing a show and I had an actor in it who is a contemporary of mine, who's having a lot of difficulty understanding what I was saying to him by way of direction. And I realized at one point that one of the things that was getting in the way was he was a contemporary, and I guess he was having difficulty taking direction from somebody who was his contemporary. And I thought, well, I have to give him freedom to find his own truth in this moment. And so I at one point said the opposite. I came in, I had no idea how to do this. Then I thought, I just have to give this person permission to find their own truth. And I shall belittle myself in the process. So I just said the opposite. I'm about to give them notes one day. And I said, the opposite of what I tell you might be the truth. And they all laughed. And the particular person I was sort of aiming it to, even though I didn't aim it at anybody in particular, said, that's funny, and sort of ridiculed it. But it worked because the next day, when we worked on the scenes, all of a sudden the actor owned everything. And it was just exactly what I heard in my head. without having to say, this is exactly what I need from you. So by allowing the actor to discover it and find the truth of that on their own was a gift. And it just required me to go, this is not an ego thing. That's it.
That's very interesting and well done for not listening to that little voice in your head that was probably saying, tell this person what to do.
My immediate response in a situation like that is to use, don't you get it? Don't you hear what I'm telling you? But yeah, sometimes that was a really good lesson for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's sometimes it's more useful to allow things to happen, to sit back and not judge and tell people what to do, but to allow them to find the solution with guidance, but without dogma.
Nice. What do you find most rewarding about your career?
If I was teaching, the most rewarding thing would be to have a student have a revelation on their own. As far as acting goes, I think I once did a workshop of a play called Paulina Turgenev. And during the workshop, which ended with a public reading, I was kind of lost. I didn't know. I was playing Ivan Turgenev, and I had no idea who this person was. And I didn't know. And then when we did the reading, I stopped thinking, and I was just in the moment. And at one point, he's telling her that he loves her. And his way of telling her that is that he tells her he wants to put her up on his mantelpiece. And I got down on my knees and grabbed on with my script and grabbed onto her arms and said, I want, and she was like this. And then after, she said to me, you're playing this part. And I said, no, I'm not. They told me I'm not playing this part. When it comes to production, she said, no, you are playing this part, or otherwise I won't do it. So I ended up playing the part, and she dropped out. But that moment taught me something that I think is really important, that acting is not about thinking. Acting is about doing. It's about being in the moment. It's about living a life. You do all the intellectual things beforehand, but when you get on stage, it's not the intellect, it's the heart.
So what do you do for fun?
I ride my bike. I love riding my bike.
If someone was visiting the city where you live, what would you recommend they see?
We have a beautiful outside environment here. There's all sorts of NCC pathways. The National Capital Commission has pathways all over the place. Along the canal, the Arboretum, there's a lot of national institutions, the National Arts Center, the National Gallery, but there's also some local arts institutions. The Ottawa Art Gallery is a fabulous gallery, and it's free. There's the Great Canadian Theatre Company, if they're operating, which is a lovely theater. As a person who lives here, I don't go to Parliament Hill, but it's a great place to visit.
Thank you, John, for being on my show.
Hey, Henry, it was my pleasure being on your show. A delight.
It was so much fun. I found it interesting when John said that he didn't know what he wanted to do when he was younger. He read a book by Jacques Cousteau and decided that he wanted to be a marine biologist. It took me by surprise when John said that he had no acting experience when he was younger. I thought he had been involved in drama classes, because most high schools offer drama. Then when he did get a job in acting, he went to the library and read a book about acting. He said that when he went to university, The most important thing he learned was how to learn, and that involved reading. It's very impressive that he went on to become a professional actor. John is a great example of how you can learn almost anything by picking up a book and reading more about it. If you want to find out more about the Ottawa Art Gallery that John mentioned, you can visit www.oagao.ca/Ottawa-Art-Gallery. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe below. And as always, special thanks to Johnny Flynn for giving us permission to use his beautiful music. Happy travels!
Is waiting for